All right, welcome to episode 3 of our educational series. This one is going to be on why the scales lie and what fat loss actually looks like. So I think a lot of people, they always get really glued on to the fact on what the scales are showing them. And if they're trying to lose weight, then obviously they'll be looking straight at the scales. And if that scale doesn't show a number that's less than last week, all of a sudden, everything that they've been doing goes out the window. Now, you need to think about what has got you to that point where you are overweight. You got to look at the underlying issue, and the underlying issue is your routine, your habits. So that's the main thing that you need to fix, okay? And then as a byproduct, the fat will come down as long as you're following structure and you have some sort of consistency. Now, a good rule of thumb is it'll take 4 weeks for you to see changes. It'll take 8 weeks for the people around you to see changes. And it takes around 12 weeks to make sure that those changes actually stay and you've implemented good habits. So if you haven't done at least 4 weeks worth of consistency and you haven't seen any change, then you need to focus on consistency first, okay? And those first initial 4 weeks, that's probably the hardest to get past, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take out old habits and filter in all these new habits. This is all new stuff to you, and we're habitual people. We always do things that we find safe, and what we find safe is all the old habits that we used to do. So it's really, really common to go back to old habits when things start falling apart. But what you need to know is that progress is more than just the number on the scale, especially in those first 4 weeks. What you'll find in week 1 is it's usually flush out of the old routine. Like, you're just flushing out the body, you're probably really bloated, you've probably been eating lots of shit, so as soon as you start to eat clean, your body is going through a bit of a detox and you're establishing routine. Okay, week 2 is really where the work starts. That's when you want to make sure that routine that you built in week 1 continues forward. Once you've got 2 weeks worth of consistency, then week 3 should be where you start to feel like this is a bit of a routine. And then week 4 is where you should really see results and comparing what you've got at the end of week 4 to where you started in week 1. If you haven't changed, then you either A, have to change around your plan and your structure, or B, stay consistent. Now, back to the scales. So the scales only show weight changes. Now, that weight can also include your fat, your muscle, your digestion, your water weight. There's so many things that go under weight changes. Ideally, when you're trying to lose fat, you're just going for fat changes. So why are you predominantly relying on something that shows you weight change? It's two totally different things. For example, you wouldn't drink 1 liter of water and jump on the scales and be like, oh my gosh, I've just put on a kilo worth of fat. Like, it's two separate things, there's weight and then there's fat, and we're trying to go for fat loss, not weight loss. So keep in mind that your weight does fluctuate roughly around 1%. So there may be days where if you weigh 100 kilos, you might be 1 kilo heavier than your true weight, and then the next day you might be 1 kilo lower than your true weight. The best way to tell is by grabbing your weight every single day roughly around the same time, and then grabbing the average for the week. And what you want to do is compare the weekly averages and see the trend. If it's downtrending, then that's good. If it's fluctuating, then there might be something that needs to change, whether it's consistency or whether it's something in your structure and routine. Something else that could affect the changes in the scales, even if you're following everything to a T, could be hormonal changes. So specifically for women, when it's that time of the month, don't expect everything to come down as it usually would. If you're in your cycle, obviously that's going to come into play. The main thing to focus on is routine. So your results will always follow the routine, and the routine always comes from, what you tell yourself. Routine and habits that's the core problem. Okay, once we fix that, all the other things will start to flow and all the results will start to come automatically. Okay, another thing that I wanted to mention is sometimes the scales will lie when you're having more carbs than other macros. The reason why is because carbs allow your body to hold more water. So when your body eats more carbs, your body converts those carbs into glycogen and stores them in your muscles. So yes, when you eat more carbs, you might have a little bit more weight on the scales, but it's just directed towards water, not fat gain. Okay, so another thing that allows your body to hold on to more water is when your sodium intake is high. So if you're in a calorie deficit, but you eat things like takeaways a lot or anything that's got lots of sodium, obviously that's going to make your body hold on to more water, hence the scales will shoot up. And even if you're losing fat, because you're having more sodium, the water intake will be higher, and so the scales won't really change, even though you are losing fat. Okay, so what does fat loss actually look like? Like what I was saying before, it's the average trend of the weekly weight, and what you want to see is it slowly start to come down. Ideally, what you want to go for is anywhere between, it's like 1% to 0.5%. That's the range. That's how much of your body weight you want to lose each week. And keep in mind that the scale has to trend down over weeks, over months, okay? Like what I was talking about with the 4, 8, and 12 week mark. Try and make sure that you're judging based off being consistent for a longer period of time. Don't just judge based off, 2 to 3 days of consistency, because it just won't work. Other signs of progress is, if your clothes fit a little bit better. Looking at photos, the way that you're performing, if you like to train in a gym or if you like to go for cardio-based training, like if your performance is better, if your energy is better, if your clear thinking is is better, then that's also a sign that you're making progress. Okay, it's not always just about the number on the scales. All right, so what's the fix to make sure that you are measuring your progress accurately? Firstly, you need to make sure that you're going off the weekly average and seeing the trend over the weeks. And you can't see a trend unless you've been consistent for at least 4 or more weeks. The next one is taking progress photos. So you only need to take this maybe once a week, ideally at the start of the week, okay? And if it's a Monday, then do it every single Monday and try and get the same positioning. If you're tensing in one photo, tense in all the photos, try and make sure that you're showing accurate changes. The third way is if you have a measuring tape, try and measure your body. And you can do this when you're doing the photos so that you can see the numbers and the changes, because sometimes it's hard to see if a photo is at a different angle or different lighting. But when you're using something like measuring tape, as long as you're measuring it from the exact same position, you should be able to see accurate changes, even if it's just 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters. It really helps out with the mental. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's lesson. Hopefully you guys learned something. I'll be back next week and we'll do something else. So if you do have a topic that you want me to talk about, then just drop them in the comments below, and then I'll make an educational video on that one as well. Cool. Thanks, guys.